Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk more about my theory, and this is where my theory starts to go off the rails a little bit into the wild stuff. Now, the way I see it is we have some group of people in control, the elites or whatever you want to call them. Some people think they're lizards. Some people think they're a satanic cult. Some people think they're aliens, whatever. But they're in charge of that central bank, all right, of which the Federal Reserve is a branch. And whenever I bring that up, we don't know who these elites are and stuff. People talk about the Rothschilds and the J.P. Morgans. And yeah, those are the people who created the Federal Reserve. That's the small branch off of the main central bank. And when I say we don't know who's in control, I'm talking about the people who are in control of that main central bank. And we have no idea who they are. We don't know their names. I've never heard anyone say their names. I've never seen these people on television. I've never seen these people or heard of these people doing philanthropic missions or anything trying to help the world. They are completely unknown. Whoever controls that main central bank is a complete mystery. And we don't even know what species they are. We have no idea. That's why there are so many theories about who is in control of things, and nobody really knows. Because nobody really knows. So my theory on that is in the cycle of time, the circle of time, if you will, someone via technology or some way has found out how to survive that, right? And they either try to control humanity, throughout each rise, or they do. And maybe there are different ways you can look at that. It could have been technology, like people figured out how to lengthen their lives through using technology. Maybe at one high point of technology, instead of having internet and all this stuff, they had really advanced medical technology. Because every time technology rises, it's like the trees of the branches of a tree. It can go in any direction. They could have just specialized in steam power and done all kinds of crazy shit with steam at one point. You know what I mean? But we went off in a different direction. They could have used levitation. What if the whole world had got behind Nikola Tesla? And we were just transferring energy all over the place through the air, and energy was free, but all other kind of stuff was expensive. So seeing that, you can see where technology can go in many different directions. So what if they had a really high level of medical technology? And if you think about it, if you believe that the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos of the world, multi hundreds of billionaires, right? If they don't have some lab somewhere with a bunch of scientists and doctors paid to figure out how to lengthen their lives, you know what I mean? Then you're not being realistic. Any of us who had those many billions of dollars would probably do that. I'll throw a few $100 million. How much would a lab cost? Get some scientists together and try to figure out how I can live longer. Shit, I'm digging this. You know what I mean? So I think they're doing that right now. Some of these billionaires are trying to figure out how they can live, several hundred years. Why not? Shit. When you got that much money, I mean, if you take like a percentage of their money, how much it would cost them, if it, that would be like $5 to me. Shit, yeah, I'd spend $5 to I'd do it just out of curiosity. I don't particularly want to live eons or whatever, but I'd do it just out of curiosity to see if it could be done for $5. Shit, yeah. But my point in that is that the reason I say that it seems like they're long lived is because the things that are happening are generational. The things that we're experiencing here. This plan has been going on for hundreds of years that I know of. It could go clear back to the Roman Empire for all I know. But definitely just here in the U.S., it's been going on for hundreds of years. They tried many attempts. They made many attempts to get the central bank over here, the Federal Reserve over here. Before the Civil War, they made many attempts, right? And then they finally succeeded in 1913, over 100 years ago now, when it's been here for over 100 years. So, yeah, it just seems like it's a long plan. Whoever's doing this, whoever's in control of this banking and control scheme over these countries, they're playing a very long game. So they're either a family who has figured out how to survive the cycles, or it's individuals who have. And that leads me, looking at our technology now, that leads me to question whether it could be synthetic, like androids or something, AI, robots, right? And they wouldn't have to eat. They could more easily survive an apocalypse than we would, with some kind of, small nuclear power source that would last them 3,000 years. Hell, they could just go power down for a couple of millennia and turn back on, and then check shit out and see what's going on. So that's even possible. And now, again, with my theme, I am working with the stuff that we have and the stuff that we know, the stuff that we have on the planet. I'm not reaching out and inventing things that don't exist on Earth, right? I mean, we have robots walking around now, and so that's not a long stretch of the imagination to say that more advanced robots would survive, and maybe even more advanced robots could try to manipulate and control the planet, the humanity. Another thing is that they could be either purposefully in charge of facilitating the collapse and the rise of civilization. Maybe these people or these robots or whatever, that's their job. They create the collapse and the rise of civilization. That might be their job. Or maybe they're just, like I was saying, people who have figured out how to survive this, and now they're trying to stave it off. Okay? They're trying to stave off with this. That's why they're controlling everything, because they're trying to stave off this collapse. Or they could be trying to facilitate it. I don't know. They could be trying to speed it up. Maybe that's what the Great Reset and all that shit's about, is them trying to bring on the collapse. So there's no telling their exact motives. That's getting into more guesswork and stuff, trying to figure out people's motives that you know and deal with on a daily basis is difficult. Trying to figure out people's motives that you're not even sure exist is really difficult. So, but yeah, that's just kind of something that's kind of how my theory goes in my head, that there's some kind of group of people, or maybe one individual, I don't know, but it seems like that they're progressing, they're long lived. Either that, or their families are very, they pass this stuff down to their families, and their family is surviving through these things, through these collapses. And that's possible too. I just think that would be a little bit tougher to get your family to stay together that long. You know what I mean? Because eventually, one of your sons is going to be a crackhead, or maybe you don't have any kids. One generation, stuff goes wrong and they don't have any kids or whatever. They don't have anybody to pass it down to, or something like that. I don't know, but or maybe they include new people in once in a while and pass it down that way. I don't know. But one thing seems to be for sure is that it's a long game. It's a long game. It wasn't like one person in one lifetime trying to do some shit and he died or she died and then, shit went crazy or whatever. That's not what happened. This plan has been in action for hundreds of years, if not thousands. Definitely hundreds, just since the advent of the United States. But I believe it goes back way before that, with this old banking shit and controlling and manipulating. I mean, it was happening during Napoleon's era. And that's recorded history. So there's something there. I might be way off base with what it is, but there's something that I'm positive about. I'm pretty sure. Like I said, the difference between evidence and proof. I don't have any proof, but just evidence from the things I've read and watched documentaries and stuff that led me to be fairly confident that there's a long game there, and it's way more than one person's lifetime, our lifetime now. So that leads me to one of two things. They're either passing this down multi-generational, and things can go wrong there. Your son, you're supposed to pass this stuff down to your son, and he ends up being a crackhead or a sex addict or something, you know what I mean, and screwing it all up. So that would be kind of hard to do over that many centuries. It's hard for people to pass down fortunes. Like, one person will build a fortune and pass it down to their son or their daughter or whoever, and then the kids squander it most of the time. They destroy everything because they weren't the ones who built it. They don't appreciate it. They don't understand it the way the founder did, and the preceding generations just waste the whole thing away, and then it's gone. So that seems to be not very likely either. I don't know how someone living, hundreds or thousands of years, it seems more likely to me than passing it down through generations, but it just does. In my mind, it just makes more sense. Seeing how technology goes and how quickly it advances once it reaches a certain stage. Because throughout the recorded history of humanity that we know of, say just back to the Roman days and before them, Alexander the Great and all that, even before him, from then until now, most of our technology has just come in the last tiny bit of human existence. I mean, it just skyrocketed. Our technological progression just skyrocketed in the last few hundred years. And that's just a tiny little fraction of the time that we have recorded of humanity. Not to even calculate all, if we're wrong and humanity goes back many millions of years before that. So then when you think about that, though, that's kind of a bad way to put it. That's just force of habit in my way, because you talk about older civilizations and many years ago, but in a circular time frame, that it wasn't many years ago. It was just a different era. You know what I mean? There is no, when you're talking about between eras, there is no past or present or future. It's just, they're just different. Like, like 3 different wooden blocks. There's no before and after. They're just different. They're completely separate from each other. So that's more how I should describe that when I'm talking about other civilizations in other eras. They wouldn't be in the past. Okay. So, but if you figured out how to survive a collapse and survive to another era, then you could definitely figure out how to manipulate things. Well, it's finances, it's money. That's how you do it, right? So let's make a bank. Let's make a bank and control everything that way. As soon as money starts getting popular and starts being used widely, we'll set up a bank and we'll start lending that shit out to people, and we'll control them through that. And that's how I would do it if I survived into another era. And that could be part of the whole system. Maybe that is set up, and maybe that's written into the code, say, of the universe, of the earth, so that they facilitate and bring about the collapse so that it can rise again. Maybe it's just part of the plan. Who knows? But it definitely seems to be happening. At least there's enough evidence there, I think, in my mind anyway, to give it some thought. It's a subject worthy of some discussion and some attention, in my mind anyway. It's interesting to me to think about it that way. And I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member, I'll leave that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that super thanks button down there. Or you can head over to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I'll put that link down in the description too. Thank you very much to those of you who do that. If you're interested in Gen X gear, you can head over to Redbubble and check out what we have over there. Gen X Stinks and Gen X branded stuff. Stickers, t-shirts, coffee mugs, hoodies, all kinds of cool stuff over there. But I'll leave that link down in the description as well. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That helps out a whole awful lot. Thank you very much to those of you who do that. I sincerely appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email is genxthinks@gmail.com. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.